kept happening.
Current songs and stuff.
Jacob, what'd you think?
I thought it was great, but the only thing I didn't really like was I felt like there's too many cheesy.
Oh my god, so many cheesy lines. The 3D was really good though.
His editing is always very jarring, you know, and it wasn't to the extent of Natural Born Killers.
His editing is not always jarring.
I literally feel exhausted.
It was actually boring.
Hi, welcome to another episode of the Movie Clips Movie Review. I'm Jimmy.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Andrew.
And this is Jacob.
He's our intern.
Hi.
So we just saw Savages, and we will be giving a review.
Yep. I think it's probably the most tolerable film of Oliver Stone I've seen since Any Given Sunday.
Oh my gosh.
Because all the films he's made since Any Given Sunday, I've vehemently felt passionately against. And this I just didn't. I
enjoy Oliver. I think Oliver Stone is a really interesting filmmaker. And the movies he makes that tend to be messes are kind of messes that only a really interesting filmmaker could make.
Exactly.
And with this one, this felt like a mess that not an interesting filmmaker could make. I was really surprised that I was actually bored by it.
I was exhausted. Actually exhausted. I got up to use the restroom, which I thought was like the third hour of the film. It was really like 30 minutes in.
I think they really needed to up the homoeroticism in this movie because that's really what I think they need to do that. I think that might have been the real push that Oliver Stone. I expected Oliver Stone to do that.
I honestly, this is how I feel about it. Not just the homoeroticism, but everything. I was hoping through the ad campaign that it would be more extreme, consistently than it was, and I didn't feel like it was. And it caused this weird kind of dichotomy where it was sometimes really trying to be earnest and sometimes trying to be ultra-violent, but it never decided on each, so it just felt like neither.
Whereas I feel like the two most relatable films to this movie is Natural Born Killers and True Romance. True Romance has a very similar plot. You know, people getting mixed up in drugs, they fall hopelessly in love. Mm-hmm. But you know, I really felt the love in True Romance.
I think we can all agree one of the most "are you kidding me" moments was when Blake Lively is kind of breaking down her relationship between Taylor Kitsch and Aaron Johnson. Mm-hmm. And she says, you know, he's this war veteran and I have orgasms, but he has wargasms.
That's a serious line in the movie, and they mean it.
That was like delivered like very cold, like just like straight up, this is what happens with us when
earnest.
We do it.
I think there is a story there. There is a possibility for that to be believed.
But not with those guys. Not with this like war violence driven guy. There's no way in hell that he wouldn't like want that girl to be all his. And Aaron Johnson, like in his Buddha ways, like still the same thing. Like you can be like open-minded and stuff like that, but there's no way that works.
If they just upped that homoeroticism tenfold, then it would have, to me, it resonated more as like
it would have been a more interesting.
It would have been a more interesting film, and maybe it would have given more resonance to why they're trying to go after it.
Maybe it's the Magic Mike effect, but there was a lot of guy butt in that movie.
I didn't mind that at all. I mean, those are good-looking guys. I'm not gay, but those are good-looking guys.
Here's the thing: the main problem for me was the tone. The tone of the movie was inconsistent. I would have preferred if it went all the way extreme, where it was like over the top all the time.
Yeah.
There's literally a scene where they're torturing a guy and his eye is dangling out of his face.
I believe it's this eye. Actually.
Yeah, it's that eye. And and it's like, not that I want to see all that, but like that scene was going for something extreme, and then the movie kind of like backs off when it feels necessary.
No, I mean, like,
goes for it
I think that
necessary.
scene was the most provoking scene. And
it pussyfooted when
the
they
three-way
burnt
scene didn't even happen, really.
I wanted a three-way scene when they fuck each other, and then Aaron Johnson and Taylor Kitsch like hold onto each other's arms
like
while they're
E2 Mama
penetrating her. Or
Tommy,
something.
yeah.
Exactly. Yes. I wanted something. It's funny how progressive and how liberal like Stone is. Yet when it came to that, it seemed like he was really shying away from it.
Yeah, I don't know. The whole thing seemed like it was just a bunch of like really dreamy, like ephemeral kind of like. Oh. In our previous review, you said that Spider-Man was the most unnecessary film that you've seen all year.
Yeah.
Would you say that this would take over the throne?
No, I wouldn't say that.
Did you like this more than Spider-Man?
I did like this more than Spider-Man. I'm not gonna lie, I did like this more than Spider-Man. I think
so.
It was
this
Oliver
is landing
Stone
somewhere
attempting...
between John Carter and Spider-Man.
No, I'm gonna say that I like this more than Spider-Man because scene to scene, I didn't know what was over the big picture. It was a very mediocre portrait. It was something that we've seen before. But scene to scene, It was new to me.
For me, the best part of the movie was Salma Hayek. Honestly,
her
performance was really strong.
That. She was amazing.
I would say Benicio del Toro, and I know that
he
that
was
role.
also
I know
good.
that role is very comfortable for him. He plays that role. He like in Traffic or in Usual Suspects. John Travolta was like. You could tell he was just wanting to rip off that shirt. I mean, he was.
I thought he was so much fun to watch.
He was very fun to watch. He was very much a character though.
What about the cinematography?
I think the cinematography is always one of Oliver Stone's, if not strongest shoots. Then you might argue with that. It's always his most striking suit. And
people look beautiful.
Yeah, people did look beautiful. It was. It wasn't like Traffic, which is a film I thought of a lot when I was watching this.
Yeah, I felt like it was.
For me, again though, he didn't quite go for it as much as I had hoped. There were a lot of static shots and scenes where people are like talking, and I was hoping that he'd, and mostly because what they're talking about isn't all that interesting, I was hoping that he'd kind of like up the kind of frenetic energy of what he kind of usually does.
Well, there were a lot of fades to black and white. Just like desaturated.
Well, I kind of liked it when he went for it like that, when he went to like the over-cranking style and the really like oversaturated colors and things like that, and he didn't do that enough for me. My biggest problem with the writing was that plot-wise, I felt like I could see all the strings.
Yeah.
It was just like this leads to this, leads to this, leads to this.
For me, the stakes were never really seemed that high to me to begin with, so I never really cared.
Yeah. I mean, there's some pretty cool action scenes in it. I mean, there's some parts where it was like a little bit too much for me personally, like the whole torturing thing. I was just kind of like sick to my stomach a little because it was a little intense, but other than that, I mean, I thought it was great. I don't know if it was intentional that it was supposed to have like cheesy lines or not.
The biggest problem I had was what I'm gonna call the Quentin Tarantino effect, where you show something hyper violent and you're playing like classical music to either, create some tension within yourself, or I mean, how would you describe it? I mean, it really just it feels like it's such a tool now that filmmakers use to try and be like, well, this is really twisted because we're playing classical music while we're torturing somebody.
To me, that still works occasionally.
Occasionally,
like, Girl
Dragon Tattoo is perfect. It's like twisted because who plays that song?
Tell you what I did like in terms of sound was the cell phone ring. I thought that cell phone ring ended up creeping me out every time it rang because it was like it was always bad news.
It was never a cell phone ring. Sometimes it was Skype. Sometimes it was an email. Sometimes it was a cell phone ring. Well, this guy had figured out the one way to sync his alert tones across all his devices.
It didn't settle between pulpy and earnest, and it ended up being neither. And my score is 28 out of 100.
I felt exhausted, and my score is 55 out of 100.
Not nearly savage enough, and not nearly enduring enough for anything. So I gave it a 56 out of 100.
I was disappointed because I was really excited for it, and it didn't really hold up to the hype that I had for it. And my score was 59 out of 100.
Those are our scores, which brings us to a total of 49 out of 100 aggregate between the four of us.
Yeah.
So,
but hey, go see it yourself. Make up your own mind. Comment below. We'll be watching. We'll comment back.
Yeah. So
let us know if you agree with us or if you think we're stupid. We'll take either.
I'm Jimmy.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Andrew.
And I'm Jacob.
And that's the review.